The image you see now is the trace of a plane crash, not a single piece of fuselage intact. A plane with 46 people on board crashed into this mountain at high speed, killed all the people on board. Today, we will simulate the crash for you, the captain was blindly confident. He forced the plane to take off when the navigation equipment failed. The story of the plane that eventually crashed into the mountain. Let's rewind the time to the afternoon of February 21st, 2008. An ATR-42 airliner checking in at Merida Airport in Venezuela. Checking in. As is customary, the captain should be in the cockpit doing all the pre-takeoff checks. However, today, the captain and co-pilot were talking in the airport cafe. They were having a good time, completely forgetting the time of takeoff. This plane is flying a direct route today, Merida Airport to Caracas Airport. It's a short domestic flight. The captain's name is Gomez. 36 years old. Though not that old, but the captain has flown this route more than 1,000 times. So today's flight should be a piece of cake for the captain, should be a piece of cake. There is no difficulty to speak of. The co-pilot is 29 years old and has little experience, only 2,000 hours. At this time there are 43 passengers on the plane. The captain and co-pilot had one empty passenger, so there were 46 people on the plane in total. A few minutes before takeoff, the co-pilot suddenly remembered that today's direct flight mission, so the captain and co-pilot put down the coffee in their hands and hurried to the airport. Then they entered the cockpit. After entering the cockpit, the crew spent only 2 or 3 minutes. The crew finished all the preparatory work before takeoff. But the Euro chair used for navigation has not yet completed the initialization process. If this gyroscope does not complete the initialization process effectively, then the aircraft cannot achieve accurate navigation. But the gyroscope on the aircraft, it takes a few more minutes to complete the initialization process. At that moment, the crew received a message from the tower that a passenger plane is about to land at the airport, but the airport has only one runway. The captain was in a hurry. Before the initialization of the navigation gyroscope was completed, he applied to the tower for permission to take off. Before he could get permission from the tower to take off, the captain hurriedly pushed the aircraft throttle to the takeoff gear. After receiving the takeoff clearance, the captain, he quickly flew the plane from Merida Airport. Merida Airport is flanked by towering peaks on both sides. The airport is located in a low valley where the peaks meet. After takeoff, the plane followed the regular flight path. The plane would fly along the canyon for a while, then it turns to the right at a lower peak. Then it flies over this lower peak and then to the opposite plane airspace, normal cruise flight. But the airport has an unwritten flight path. The purpose is also to save fuel. The flight path of this route is roughly as follows. After takeoff, the aircraft, not far from the airport, choose a low-lying area, do a 180-degree turnaround. Then fly along the low-lying valley to the plain area. Cruise. On this day there was a thick fog near the airport. Visibility was not very good. In addition, the aircraft's navigation equipment was also malfunctioning because the navigation gyroscope can only be initialized while stationary. Once the plane was in the air, then the navigation gyroscope will not work, so the flight could only rely on the crew's experience to fly visually. But the weather was not cooperating. The co-pilot in charge of the plane could not see the ground at all, only with the experience of 2 people flying in the clouds and fog. But luckily, the captain has flown this route for thousands of times. Therefore, the plane managed to reach the unwritten flight path, the turnaround point of the line, the turnaround position. The co-pilot started to steer the plane, but due to inexperience in piloting and low visibility, when the co-pilot was turning the plane, he turned a few dozen degrees more. The plane flew unknowingly, flew into the mountains next to it. The altitude of the plane was getting lower and lower to the ground. Suddenly, the cockpit's near-ground alarm system went off. Pull up. Pull up. The co-pilot panicked immediately. The captain also felt that something was wrong, immediately took over the control of the aircraft from the co-pilot, began to pull back the lever and push the aircraft's throttle to the maximum. In a short time, the plane flew out of the fog. A towering mountain was in front of him. The plane kept climbing upwards. The captain and co-pilot looked at the mountain in front of them in horror. They yelled, "Pull up, pull up. Pull up!" Boom! The plane with 46 people on board instantly crashed into the opposite mountain peak. The plane was instantly reduced to nothing. All 46 people on board were killed because the crew neither followed the regular scheduled flight path and did not follow the correct unwritten flight path, the flight off the unwritten flight path by tens of degrees. As a result, rescuers did not find the crash site until the next day. With the black box from the crash site, investigators soon found the cause of the crash. 1. The crew was in a hurry to make time in the navigation gyroscope. Had not yet been fully initialized before the navigation gyroscope was fully initialized, resulting in the loss of the plane's precise navigation system. 2. The weather conditions were not very good that day, there was a thick fog near the airport, visibility was not good. The co-pilot made an extra turn of several dozen degrees during the turn, causing the plane to fly into the mountain and finally crashed into the mountain. If the crew had gotten on the plane earlier to do all the preparations before takeoff, then the navigation gyroscope would have completed the initialization process smoothly. The crew can use the accurate navigation equipment. The flight would have been completed successfully. Unfortunately, there is no if. May the deceased rest in peace. May this never happen again.